Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to do a watercolor using my new Petit Aquarelle Sennelier, the student line or the student travel box. I don't know if the paints are really that much different than the artist line actually. I'm going to start by sketching on this little fox. It's a sleeping fox, so I'm going to start with an oval to kind of incorporate the whole body. And then I'm just going to get the head kind of shape on here. Head and nose. I'll put a link to the reference photo. It's from Paint My Photo, so that you can follow along too if you want. I'm going to get this ear in here, and then another ear just about up like that. And get his little brown nose on there. And let's see, his eyes are closed, so we're just going to get that little, we'd only be able to see one eye, so we're going to get that there. And get the bushy fox tail. Let me see that. And then that's pretty much all we have for definition. It's very, very simple when you break it up into simple shapes. Now in the photo there are some like wildflowers growing over here, but I think I'm going to put a snowbank because it's kind of almost Christmassy time. It's winter. We're supposed to actually get a really big storm. Oh, I just realized that I have the back way too big. So what I'm going to do is actually make that a little bit smaller here. There we go. Had him way too big on there. I didn't have his head big enough. So I'm just going to go in with a soft white eraser and erase any of the lines I don't want and soften up any of those harsh lines I have. Make them a little bit lighter. And I'm going to tap this off. There we go. I don't know, I might put some, I don't know if I want it snowy or not. Now that I think about it, we're supposed to get a big snowstorm, so I don't know if I really want it that snowy. I'm just going to go in and fluff up that tail a little bit just so I have it. And maybe fluff the fur a little bit going that way too. You know what, I think I am going to do wildflowers, but I'm just going to get rid of that long line and I'll put them in a little bit. I am going to start by wetting my fox. I think I'm going to go with a round brush actually. I feel a little out of sorts. I'm actually painting here. I don't know when the phone's going to ring to pick up, you know, a kid or not. It's just one of those kind of lazy Sundays. I feel like I have just kind of lounged around a lot and wasted a lot of the day. So I'm like, I gotta do something productive. One productive thing I should have done was change my water because it's pretty grimy looking actually, but we'll muddle through. Okay, I'm going to do some different shades of orange. I'm going to start with this Venetian red, I think it is. It's kind of a, it's a nice foxy red actually, is what it is. This fox isn't super vibrant, so I am going to push the color up a little bit more than what there is in the picture. I'm going to get a little yellow ochre. These colors are really nice. I find that they behave a lot like the regular Sennelier paints that I'm used to, that I purchased earlier this year. I'm just kind of playing with them, so I'll have the information so I can do a review, because I don't like to go into a review unless I've actually done some paintings with it and played with them a little bit. I don't think it's fair to do a review otherwise. I mean, you can, if you've painted a lot, you can get a lot of information just by looking and swatching stuff out, but I really like to put it to practice because sometimes you can't really tell the full quality of a paint just by swatching it. So I've got that wash down there, nice unifying wash. And I think I'd like to also get some color on the rest of the painting too. And this old down, it almost looks like in a little trench or trough or something. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine and I'm going to add it to that Venetian red. That's going to give me a nice dark brown. I'm going to stick to a limited color palette here. I do have to be careful. That wants to go purple, a little purple on me. So I'm going to add a little yellow ochre to that. So this nice dark brown there, I want to put in this area. This might turn into a speed paint, I'm not sure. And I'm going to pull a little bit of this behind the fox. Try to keep my hand out of the way. I know sometimes it gets in the way there. Some texture from the paper. And I think I'll grab some more yellow ochre. And there's a pretty green in the kit. It's called olive green, but it really reminds me of a lovely sap green. I really like it, so I'm going to go ahead and grab some of that too to add in, because it is kind of a spring scene that I am looking from. I decided that I just didn't want to deal with the snow any more than I have to, so we're going to go with spring colors. I hope you can hear me well enough. I guess if you can, I'll have to turn it into a speed paint. You can tell me what you think about speed paints in the comments below. I know a few of you like them. I know most of you prefer the other ones though. So what I like to do in these first layers is I like to just get some kind of unifying colors. I like to get the colors I plan on using incorporated. So if I know I'm going to use that green, I'm going to try mixing that with some ultramarine blue and see what kind of darks I get that way. And I get that right off the bat. I just find it's really useful to get as much of that stuff in right off the bat if you can. And I think it's a really nice color for shadows in the grasses, so I'm going to go ahead and mix up a bunch of it to go over here. I'm going dry on this part because I want to keep some of the colors. I want to keep some of my brush strokes fairly crisp. I do need to put in the rest of that little path behind our foxy right here. I'll just sneak that right in there. And I love starting my paintings off this way because I don't have to keep anything too precious. I don't have to worry about ruining something I've spent a lot of time on. That's why I don't like to put my backgrounds in after. I know some people do. That's totally fine. But for me, I like knowing that that I don't have to worry about it. If you get too much paint on, you can blot it. Or if you want to give a little texture, you can blot that too. I just want to change the texture up from the little path, from the kind of the greenery, the vegetation there. Oh, it's coming out kind of cute actually. So now I want to do a little bit more. I want to do some pretty purple flowers in there, so I'm going to decide what I want to do for that. I've been using Ultramarine, so I can use that. I can add a little bit of my, it's PV19. It's kind of like rose madder or permanent rose, very pretty color. I'm going to put some of that very loosely in here for some close-up flowers. No detail yet, just blocking out shapes, okay? So don't worry about anything yet. I'm going to see what the sap green and the yellow ochre look like together to see if that's vivid enough to be my brightest green. I think it is. It's really kind of a pretty color, so I'm going to go in and add some of that. And I'm just trying to keep my foreground a little bit more fresh and vibrant. Fox though, because I know that that's still wet, so I don't want it to get too muddled. So far I'm impressed with these paints though. They seem to be performing like their artist grade counterpart. I did email the company to see if the paint is the same in their Petit Aquarelle and their extra fine watercolors, and hopefully they will get back to me. And now I'm going to let this portion dry, and then we'll go in and start adding some layers. Okay, I let my painting background dry, and then I just wanted to show you what colors I ended up using, and these will be the colors that I mix for all my colors throughout the painting. I have olive green, which if you don't have these paints, sap green will work. Yellow ochre, Venetian red, you could also use a burnt sienna, or Indian red, or English red. Those are all very similar. PR101 is a pigment. Ultramarine blue. And this is, gosh, I can't remember what is it called. They call it rose permanent rose. It's PV19, any sort of cool rosy red. So that's what I'm using. And we are going to go on with our second layers, and I think we're actually going to get right in there and paint on the little fox there. So I'm going to work on, I think I'm going to work on the back behind the head there. I'm going to start with the Venetian red. And let's see what this looks like just on its own. And this is the back. I'm painting it next to the tail. So I want that fluff. So I'm kind of negative painting into the fluff of the tail to kind of give it that texture. And then I'm going to pull this up. This is just a cheapy brush. This is a Princeton Art and Brush Company. It's the Real Value series. It's Ocean State Job Lot is a discount place in Maine that carries, I think it's all over New England. And I find that there's a little pack of brush, a little short handle pack of 5 brushes, and it is just wonderful for anyone getting into watercolor, or if you just want to like a backup set to travel with so you don't have to worry about you know, losing your good brushes. I can't recommend it well enough. In fact, I was just at the store the other day and I recommended it to somebody that was standing kind of confused around the brush aisle. I'm like, this is the one you want if you're doing watercolors. It's actually decent for acrylics too, so I highly recommend that. Now I want to get a little bit darker, and I'm gonna do the Venetian red with a little ultramarine blue. I kind of hemmed and hawed between zooming out so that you could see my palette or zooming in so you could see more of the painting. I decided to stay zoomed in to see the painting. So this is the Venetian red and the ultramarine blue. It's got a lot of fluffy fur on the back of the animal, so I'm just gonna try to I'm just painting the shadow under the fluffy fur. If you go check out the reference photo that I linked up in the video description, you'll see what I mean. It's got this really kind of like fluffy overcoat. I don't know if it's growing in for the winter or if this fox is shedding it for the spring. I'm not 100% sure, but it's kind of fluffy looking. So the fox isn't super bright. It's more of a kind of fluffy, lighter colored fox. So now I'm going in the tail area and I am painting in some of the fluff, and it's going to be darker at the bottom because it's more shadowed, but I want that fluffy fuzzy look. He's all rolled up, all taking a little snooze. So cute. Oh my gosh, when I saw this photo I immediately saved it in one of my photo albums. Paint My Photo is free, in case you're wondering. It's pmp-art.com. It's completely free. You can make a donation if you want to. But it's great. You can organize things into photo albums. So like if I know I might want to do this with pastels or watercolor or oil, since I paint in several medias, I will organize it that way. Or if I think I might use it on a live show, I'll put it in my live folder. But it's a great way to keep your stuff organized. I don't think the folders are private. I think if you went to my, you probably even get a little sneak peek of what I'm planning on painting. You could probably look through my my albums. And it's just a great way to keep it organized. But just keep in mind, I don't think it's private when you're organizing your photos. So if you're trying to make a secret painting for somebody, I guess you might not want to do that. So I'm using my brush very dry, and you can see how my bristles are kind of spread apart there. Because this is a synthetic, a stiffer brush, I can use that to my advantage and make my tail nice and fluffy, get all those little brush strokes. You could also use a small rake brush. Just be careful because sometimes the rake brushes will make it look kind of fake, as does a fan brush when you're using it for fur sometimes. Not always. You just want to keep an eye on it. And I bring in some of that dry brush texture up here too. I made my fox's tail a little fluffier than it was in the picture. I need to make kind of a gray, and we've done that before. We're going to take a little ultramarine blue and add it into the Venetian red. Cool it right down. I'm going to add some water. I want it kind of transparent. And my paint is kind of it's kind of loose, actually, loose skim milk consistency, and I want to get that shadow in because I'm losing my pencil marks. So I just want to kind of get that in there so I don't lose my definition there. And then I'm wicking out those that color. My brush is pretty full right now, so that's why I'm kind of bringing it out and doing these choppy little strokes so I can graduate it into the fluffier, drier texture here. So rather than blot my brush and waste that pigment, I know I can use it. I'm just bringing it over. And if it does bother you, if you feel like you're bringing too much paint over, you can blot your brush. I like to do that like this just because I can kind of save a little paint and and save a little time. Just keeping on doing that, just adding that shadow in a little bit. Now I can't see too much of the back because of the foliage is going to be growing up, but I do want to put something in there. I'm going to go in with the Venetian red. It's a very foxy color, and I'm going to add this behind the face here, and I'm going to start getting that fur, the direction of the fur in here. And I'm actually going to, I don't want a hard edge there. I'm going to kind of bring in some brush strokes. Even though I can't really see it right there, I want to make sure that I don't have a really harsh edge going onto the face. And I'm just going to bring some of that back. So if you think if you're going to pet this fox, which I don't recommend going up to a fox and trying to pet it, but if you were to pet a fox, you want your strokes to go with the direction that the fox's fur would go. Pick up a little of that gray I just mixed. Get that in there a little bit. And look how I'm moving my brush. Okay, I'm moving it with the direction of the fur. Little choppy strokes. I'm moving my arm and my hand in an arc, and I'm just touching it down here and there. Not a lot of paint on my brush. You could go to a smaller brush if you're feeling like you have too much paint and you can't control it. I don't want to do more than I can undo if I decide that I put too much paint in there. And yellow ochre just kind of tapped off of my palette a bit so I don't have too much, and I'm going to do some of that in there too. I do want my fox a little bit brighter than what the reference photo is, but I don't have a lot of experience painting foxes. I don't know if I've ever painted a fox before, truth be told, so I'm heavily relying on my reference photo and only taking a little bit of liberty with the color just because I really don't have enough experience painting foxes to go too crazy with it. Just want to get some texture in there. And I can take a little bit of that yellowy color, and I can put a little bit in the fluff, the tail fluff. That's kind of fluffing out everywhere. And I'm not trying to get a photograph here, guys. I am really, really kind of impressionistic. And I'm just kind of dragging a little texture under there. That's going to be covered up. A lot of that's going to be covered up, so I just don't want to get too carried away in there. Okay, so now I want to take a little time on the face. That's where I want to spend most of my energy. I'm going to go with the ultramarine blue and the Venetian red to make a nice dark, my darkest values for like the tip of the ear and whatnot. If this is too red, I can do two things. I can add yellow to it, or I can add my green to my mix, because that's going to make it grayed down. If it's too red, the green will counteract any of that red. If it's too purple, then the yellow will counteract it. So keep that in mind. If your mix is too purple, add yellow. If it's yellow ochre, if it's too red, add some green. Because Venetian red kind of is mostly brownish orangey color, so that's why we go in with the blue. So now I'm getting the shape. I really want to get the shape of that ear right. This ear is darkest. Now I have to do a little negative painting because I've got some tufts of fur coming up. So I'm flicking up the fur here. I'm going to bring that right up like that. And I'm just going to take my time and make sure that what I'm doing is accurate. Okay, this isn't for speed, this is for accuracy. And it's okay to leave a little rim around because you can add some lighter hair in there to give it that little bit of a halo. Now I'm going to go over to this ear, and I am going to put the dark in the middle. That's kind of how it is. They have a lot of lighter fur. And I am going to get that color in the middle, and then I'm going to drag it backwards, because we can't, well, we could, if we got into a fix, we can go back in with white and we can get those little hairs in that way, or with a gel pen, nothing wrong with that. But typically with traditional watercolor, we want to kind of stick to the transparent color, so we're going to paint around that for the time being. So we're just flicking that dark out. to get the inner part of the ear. It probably looks really strange and awkward right now, but don't worry. We're going to get there. I feel super mellow. I know I probably sound like Lindsay. Why are you so mellow sounding? Because it's Sunday. I'm feeling mellow. My kids are all off doing different things. And I'm just chillaxing with my paint. There's a lot of things I should be sorting laundry, truth be told, but that'll keep. And there'll be more if I, you know, there's always more. Okay, and then this kind of gets dark under here, so I'm going to go in and get that. If you were to look at me, which, you know, you wouldn't want to, I have a very sloppy bun going on, just like no makeup or anything, but if you were to look at me, you would see my head looking from the paper to my reference photo, back and forth, kind of like a cat watching a, a hypnotist swinging a watch or something. You know, I'm looking back and forth is what I'm trying to say here. Very unelegantly trying to say, I should say. Because I did not draw in that much detail, so I constantly need to look back and forth to make sure that I am accurate. Now, I'm dabbing on this eye for the line, line for the eye, because I want it to be kind of fuzzy and furry and almost a little non-committal, to tell you the truth, because I'm trying to draw and talk and paint at the same time, basically. Getting the little nose in here. I like to fade out as much as I can, and I can fade out with these little stippling marks. Tap, 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 see? And I can get a lot of work done with those little tapping marks. And I could even go in and kind of figure out where I'm going to put my those little they have those little whisker spots where the whiskers come out from. Okay, and I'm just looking any place I see that I would be using a little of this darker color, and I'm just putting it in, because I find I like to get those values in first. So now I'm going to go in with my lighter color that I'm using, which is yellow ochre. And I'm going to be putting some yellow ochre up here. And flicking it up, and anything that's my lightest lights is going to be that first wash that we put on the paper. So some things are going to stay that color, and some things are going to get a little bit darker. Now I feel like that's a little too yellow, so I'm going to grab some of that Venetian red to tone it down. And I can also mix it around with some dirty stuff on my palette, because all the colors on my palette are stuff that I've used already. So if I see, gosh, that's too yellow, I can correct it. As long as you stick with the same colors, you're not going to go wrong. And it's a slow buildup of colors. It's a slow buildup of pigment. That's why I was thinking I would speed paint this, because it's probably going to be a little boring to watch it all in real time. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully you enjoy a relaxing painty time. So I'm almost going, like, I kind of go until I have like no paint on my brush, and then I reload, because I like getting that dry brush texture. This here needs to be a little bit bigger, and I can see that now that I'm looking at my reference photo. I see that I made it a little too, I shouldn't have so much space between the ears, so I'm just working that paint and lifting it up in between the ears. Okay, now I feel like I need to work my paint a little bit wetter, so I'm going in with the Venetian red, and I'm going to work some of that into my scene here, because I feel like everything's gotten a little too dry brushy and textured. So I'm going to need to move in with a little bit of this. Separate those ears a little bit. Now that I've brought them a little closer together. It's probably going to see, it probably seems a little fiddly next to a lot of my paintings. I'm pulling in these strokes here down towards the face, down towards the nose. Want some water in that yellow ochre. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that brown that we mixed. I got to tone it down. The yellow is a little too strong. And I'm going to start kind of at the top of the eye and flick backwards here to get that movement that I want to get. Because there's a lot of different patterns, a lot of different directions on the hair, on the face. So I don't have to paint every hair in, but I do want to be accurate, and I want to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. And I got to make sure that I keep the light area where it's supposed to be light. So I'm going in carefully, and I'm looking back and forth at my reference photo, and I'm making sure I keep the area light that needs to be light. And see, if you do get too much texture, too many lines, you can just go in with a wetter brush and brush over them, and they will dissipate a little bit. I love how you can combine all the colors. The only color I haven't used in this fox yet, and I still may, is that bright red, is the bright rose color. That doesn't have to be, we haven't used that in the fox yet. Doesn't mean that we won't. But we've used every other color. We've used sap green, we've used that sap green, it's actually olive green. But it looks very much like sap green. We've used that to kill some of the red. We've of course used the ultramarine with the Venetian red. Is it Venetian red or Indian red? The PR101. We've used that to kind of darken it. We're getting all those colors in there, all the colors from the background. Everything's going to feel like part of nature, and it really should, because animals are meant to blend in. That's part of their survival. So of course we would be using them. I feel like I have a little bit too much going on in the ear. I think I need to add a little more dark in some areas. You can always go on to another part while you're thinking about what to add. I need a little more red in the face. Right in between the eyes. Remember, we can only see one eye. The paper is damp I'm going on to, but that's alright because it's softening out my strokes a little bit so I don't end up with too much detail. And don't worry if you're getting a little like burnt out on working on the fox's face. We will go onto the background a bit so we can give her eyes a little bit of a chance to rest from this. I just want to get that second layer on the fox, and I feel like I need a little bit of blue kind of on its own, so I'm taking some of the ultramarine blue, which is a little dirty from the the Venetian red that's on there, and I just want to kind of get some of these whiter areas. I want to go in with this watery grayed down blue and just kind of glaze over it, and that's going to cool down the area and make it appear a little bit more white, or like there's white fur. You don't really see the white in nature a lot of times. And I will be able to go in and lift off some of that if I decide to later. So now that I have that second layer down, I'm going to go on and work on some of the foliage. So I think I'm going to, let me switch to a different brush. I think I'm going to try this, because this is really kind of floppy and unruly, and I'm going to see what I can do with it. So I'm going to start by mixing up kind of a dark color. I'm going to use the ultramarine and my Venetian red, just to start off with like kind of a brown. Oops, I put way too much water in there. And I just want to kind of get a little bit of shadow under the fox. And I like that I can hold a ton of water this way. It's right up under his snout, and just kind of get that path pulled away from the other stuff we're going to be painting. Nice and dark in there. This is a Zen 3/8 Zen 3/8 sword. I really like the way the colors, these two colors mix, because they kind of separate and granulate, and I think it's really pretty. And I'm going to do the ultramarine, grab a little yellow ochre, so I make kind of like a dead grass color, because the path has been trampled a little bit, so I want to get that in there too. And then I can go and get some of this behind the fox in that path. And I'm going to go back in with that dark color, and I'm going to get a shadow behind my fox. Now, this is a super soft brush, and these are student grade paints, but I'm finding they mix, like I'm able to make enough color, so it kind of tends to make me believe that perhaps the paint in this set is just their artist grade, kind of remarketed, kind of to give people like a good start in watercolors, which I think is admirable, and I really, I'm really just pleased with the quality of this. So it's nice. All right, so sometimes when I'm just approaching a different area, I want to turn my paper so it's a little more comfortable for me to get to. And I just want to make sure I don't have any real harsh lines. I'm just pulling in some fuzzy shapes by just kind of pulling the shadow color in, so I get some nice fuzzy shapes. So the tail looks fluffy is what I'm going after here. And this also makes him look a little nestled, like he's nestled into this scene. Add a little water to my brush so I can still get that, get those kind of like that foliage look back there without making him look outlined. And I want a little more of that sap green in there, actually. That's pretty. I like that. I say sap green. It's actually olive green, but their olive green looks like a sap green, which I was really pleased because I'm not terribly fond of olive green usually as a color. So keeping it super juicy and loosey in the background. And I'm actually going to just brush a little bit of water to make it more out of focus and soft. And now in the foreground, I want to pull up some yellow, some of the sap green. Let's just pull some of that up on its own and see what we get. I really like the look of that. It's really fresh. I think our fox is dry enough that I can go and pull up some of the blades of grass around him. Right on top of him, rather. Pulling it right up over. If you need to make it more opaque, like it's not covering the fox enough, you can just add a little yellow ochre to it, so you're still staying with those transparent colors, but you're but it's just, that's a heavier pigment, so it just tends to have better coverage, but it's not like you're adding white to it or anything. And nothing wrong with adding white to it, it just wouldn't be a transparent watercolor. That's, you do what you want to do. It's your painting, there's no police. And I like this brush because I can use a full side of it and get like really thick lines, or I can use the tip of it and get thinner lines. I'm getting used to handling it. I'm not that experienced with the sword, but boy, it does do a nice job for getting these random effects. Now I'm going to switch over to a I think I'm going to use like a smaller. It's not really a smaller round, but it's a pointier round. It's a number 12 Mimic. I'm going to mix up some more of that ultramarine blue and permanent rose to get myself a nice violet. And I'm just going to put on some of these little flowers a little bit more detailed. Is that in screen there? Not a ton of detail though, just a little bit of just a little bit. The fox is the detailed part. The fox is the star of the show. Getting a little muddy because my color got into the green. Go in with a little bit more of that purpley color. Mixing it, of course, not taking it right from a purple pan. I'm just mixing what I have. We're going the same colors the whole time. I want this stuff to be loose so that my fox will appear to be really detailed. Fox isn't actually going to be really detailed. It's just going to appear that way because everything else is loose. And I'm also going to spatter some of that purple, which you may think that, why would you spatter? You know, you could ruin it, but I'm not really that worried. I think that it gives kind of a nice texture. And then I can blot it really quickly. You usually can go in when you spot it, or you can go in and blot anything that you're not happy with. Now I'm going to go to a smaller brush and put a few more details on our fox. And I'm also going to grab a scrubber brush. This might be a little too stiff, but I do want to have something I can put some more scrubby details in there. Oh, I got this. I love this little scrubber brush. This is a Maxine's mop. This one is a fabric brush, but it's almost too stiff. Like, it will damage my paper if I'm not careful. So I'm going to go in with this little Maxine's mop, and I'm going to scrub out some highlights on my fox. I am going to get the fur back here. And because we used yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, and Venetian red, it should lift up pretty well. Those are all very liftable colors. See, it's getting nice and bright there, wherever I lifted it. You don't want to take all that paint out because we worked too hard on that, but I do want to get some fluffy. There we go, nice and fluffy. See some fluffy on the back here. And kind of fuzz them out a little bit too. So this is a Maxine's mop, a 1/4" Maxine's mop. I really like this brush. I only have one of them. And you know, you don't have to worry about keeping it nice because you use it for scrubbing. So it's like, the older it is, the better it is. You know, it just gets more, you know, ragged and scrubbable. So it's kind of a nice brush to have, and no worries about brush care with it, really. There. Oh, I think that really added quite a bit. I also want to scrub a little bit here in the ears. I got a little too light, a little too dark. I like that quite a bit better, actually. I have a tendency to go in with too much paint and then have to go in and remove. But you know what? It's fine. It's fun. On the top of the nose too. I feel like this really adds a lot. There, makes them feel a lot more realistic. I'm gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna come back and put on our final touches. Okay, this is dry, and I mixed up some Venetian red and ultramarine blue, and I am going in and adding my darkest darks, my darkest details. I just don't want to lose the freshness. I feel like I have some nice freshness in here, and I don't want to lose it. I am using a small number 2 pointed round. This is the this is one of the Mimic faux squirrel brushes. Just giving any sort of little detail I feel like want. I find that if I have a good pointed brush, I don't have to go with a teeny tiny brush. And I really kind of want to get those little details, like little whiskers. I probably could go with a smaller one, but I think that if you use the biggest brush that you're comfortable with, you're going to be a better painter because it just teaches you brush control. And when you get a good brush, you can get a good range of strokes from one size. And I do think these Mimics are good brushes, and they're quite affordable, and they're not. They don't harm any animals in their production, which is nice. I'm just going in anytime I see my darkest colors. I want to get those in. Negative painting a lot with these up here near the ear because I'm kind of trying to keep the light of my of the ears. Now I could go in with a gel pen or some white gouache. But I would really want to keep it kind of fresh looking. So I'm going to try to avoid that. If it so happens that you want to use gouache, that's fine, or you want to use white gel pen, go for it. You do what's right for your painting. I don't know what your painting looks like at this point. And you might not want to put in as much time. You might want to just kind of wrap it up. Go right ahead and do that. That's fine. I am not going to judge you. I used to be so like, oh, never use white. But now I'm like, you know what? Use whatever you want to use. It's none of my business what you want to use. It's more like for myself, I never use white. I didn't go around judging other people's use of any color they wanted to use. It's their business, not mine. All right, and over here, whoops, watch out for any beads. You don't want any beads of water slipping down your brush when you're doing this. Now I'm getting into the area where the foliage is going to come around, so I don't want to get too detailed in there. In fact, that's a little dark, so I'm going to blot it. And maybe give a little bit of this dark here in between the ears. I don't think I'm going to add any more detail in the rest of the fox. I'm just going to do some stuff on the face, and that is going to be it. Just barely, I'm barely flicking this the paper with my brush. Just little, like, tiny little strokes. Now I'm going to go into my Venetian red. I am mixing it with a little bit of that dark color that I used before, just because I want it to, I don't want it to be too bold. I'll blot my brush a little bit. I got that a little wet. Short strokes with the direction of the fur is what we're going for. Go until your brush runs completely out of paint, so you're not tempted to have too much on there. And then when I go back in with my brush, I'm going to put it where I want the most color, and then I'm going to keep flicking until I completely run out of paint again. I don't know if that's how most people do fur, but for me, it just keeps me from getting too crazy. Oops, that's way too dark. A little water in there to lighten it up. It's Venetian. It's a Venetian red. I had just gotten into a little bit too much of that gray mix that I'd done before. Keeping it light at the brow bone to kind of give me that raised form. I'm going to add a little yellow ochre into my mix. So I have kind of like a caramel color. So it's very caramelly, I think. Doesn't that look kind of like caramel to you? It's a little too much paint on there, though. You can add water to get it to the darkness, the lightness that you want, and then blot it to remove the excess water, and you'll still keep that color that you want. A little bit darker in here under the brow bone to give it that form. Alright, I think that's how I'm going to leave the face, honestly. I think I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to go in with my liner. I'm going to do some more grasses. I'm going to do yellow ochre. And then I'm going to do some of the olive green together with it to give it a little bit more opacity and color. The yellow ochre is giving it the opacity. The olive or sap green is giving it the color. Just be careful when you do this, when you pull this up over the fox, it's going to be there for good. And I want to do a little of the sap green or olive green with the ultramarine blue to give it a little bit of a shadow. Now I'm going to switch to a bigger brush because that's not carrying enough paint. Let's see. Oh, I think I'll go to this smaller dagger. I like that. It's a more of a dagger because the bristles are shorter. I'm going to grab the sap green, and I'm going to drag in some bigger blades. I need a little more water in there because it's not coming off of my brush. Now you might be tempted to reach for your lemon yellow to lighten that up a little bit. You can do that, but you haven't used that anywhere else in the painting, so I would highly recommend you to not do that, just so that you can keep that harmony. If you want to do the painting again, or if maybe you haven't painted it yet, you may decide that, well, I'm going to add lemon yellow into that background right from the get-go, so I can have that option of doing it later and having it look nice and fresh. You could totally do that. I think this is it. I think I'm going to leave it like this. I think this is kind of cute and fun, and I like my little foxy fox. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give me a thumbs up, and check out some more of my videos. And I do hope you try it, and let me know how it turns out. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Okay, so I started thinking that I didn't put any of that rose on the fox, and sometimes after I'm done filming a video, I'll take some chances with my artwork, and I thought, you know, I really want to see what would happen if I took some of that rose and I added it into my Venetian red, and I'm doing that here, and you know what, I gotta tell you, I really love the pop of color that I'm getting, and because I haven't used that anywhere else on the fox, I can really draw the viewer's attention in. So I just wanted to come back on real quick and share that with you in case you were thinking, in case you were wondering what would happen if you added some of that color in there. I think it's a great idea anytime you can get every color into your focal subject. That's why I work with a limited palette, so I have to be creative with the colors that I use, and I think that really helped to bring this picture together. And you can mix it in with yellow ochre and you get a nice bright color as well. I just think it's a great way to kind of bring focus into this sweet little face. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to share my my experimentation because it actually was working well. And sometimes I totally destroy a painting when I do this, but in this case, it actually is working out pretty well. So you can fuss with that as much as you want. I'll pop up a photo, still shot of how it turned out, so you can see, and also have that photo on my blog, so you can check it out there as well. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.